Welcome to the Recovery Roundtable podcast, where the journey to sobriety opens up through powerful discussions and shared experiences. Join your host, Mark, who will bring you stories of triumph and resilience from the heart of Pacific Shores recovery. Every episode offers insights and support, guiding you through the challenges of addiction recovery. Thank you for joining our community. If you're ready to start or continue your recovery journey, we're here to inspire and support you. Let's explore recovery together.
So yeah, man, thank you for jumping in here. It's free form, so we'll see where it goes. But the first thought was, you have started multiple businesses over the last 10 to 15 years. Yeah. And so I'm always just loving picking people's brains of what worked, what didn't work, how did they do it. So yeah. What was the very first business that you were a part of that you either created or co-created?
I was 17 years old. So I dropped out of high school. Actually, when I was 15 years old, I hated school, and I loved sports, but I also loved watching my dad do business. You know, he had a successful concrete company, very artistic type of concrete, stamp work, stain, he did furniture, but was really well known for his craft. And but going on to job sites with him and watching him with his yellow pads, writing things down, doing his plans, and then going on and going to bids and just meeting the owners that, are going to invest a lot of money into designing their houses, and watching my dad pull up on the job site, and him being a great leader to all of his whole crew, and it was just something that just resonated with me, and I was like, man, I just love this. And when I'm learning in school, I don't know if I had, I just couldn't pay attention. It wasn't stimulating enough for me. But I was more so just almost, I was just fascinated watching my dad. So I ended up getting in a car accident, head-on collision I fell asleep at the wheel when I was probably 17-ish, 18, something right there. So I think I started when this company when I was maybe just turned 18 or something like that. So we ended up getting a head-on collision, and he ended up being okay, fortunately. He got really messed up. It was really sad. It sucked. But ended up being okay. Well, my insurance paid him out $250,000, right? So his mom, bought him a house, but also bought him a screen printing machine. And I've always loved clothes and, anyways. So I started up an LLC with the neighbor. He bought me helped me with the LLC, and it was called Twisted Threads. And so I got the name all legitimate, and we started printing up a whole bunch of shirts, thousands of shirts. And Coachella Fest, would come around once a year in little events. Well, I would go out in front of Coachella Fest and sell shirts. And so it was super fun designing the logos and screen printing and all this stuff and making money off something that I just created as a teenager, and people liked it. I was like, whoa, this is great. And it started working. So, ended up using drugs, really, messed that whole thing up. I would have been such a freaking good kid, man. I was on set, I just got so lost in the sauce of that path. But, here I am today, though,
But so, because you're super scrappy. So you're driving, you fall asleep behind the wheel, get in the head-on collision wreck. The insurance payout is $250,000, and you're not even an adult at that point. Mm-mm. And somehow that leads you into starting a clothing line that you go and sling shirts at Coachella.
Yeah, and in the hood. My brother at the time was working at Gibson House in San Bernardino, and my brother had a funny saying, because all my shirts would kind of be neon colors, but it said if it ain't neon, shouldn't be on. I don't know. He said it, so I'm putting on a shirt for you, does. But he ended up repping it, and then before you know it, the whole hood in Rialto and San Bernardino is wearing my brother's shirts and stuff like that. But yeah, it was really interesting, and then my brother liked it, and and his friends and people just kind of took off with it, and nothing ever happened of it. Just let it die out. But.
Well, and I want to get to the second business, but before we do, where we see so many people get stuck is they think the first business is going to be the banger.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of I think I remember seeing this statistic. I think it's I think it's 4.7. It's either 3.7 or 4.7. The reason why I say this is because I remember like, how do you do a 0.7 business?
Yeah.
But it's just from running all the statistics and numbers. But they say the average business person or entrepreneur starts, we'll just say 4 for conservative, starts 4 businesses that fail before they find the one that is the huge payout. So you're scrappy. You do the clothing line. Kind of lose the way for a little bit. Totally. What's the second business?
Second business, so I ended up getting my life together 4/4/14, right? And so I talked to my dad. My dad was still alive at that time, and it was 2015, and it was an epoxy. My brother and I used to do epoxy floors for my dad, like a side business, and it paid well. We loved it. It was another kind of creative thing. And so my dad supported it. Wow, my boy wants to, start up his own business, and he tried, but again, I just wasn't in the right space. I was just learning life, and so I ended up not following through with it. We got everything ready to go, and then I just was talking with my dad. I was like, Dad, I'm not ready for this, and so didn't fully start that, but I went. So that really didn't take off, but that was, again, it was another I'm starting to like this.
Another lead. So I got a visual picture of you're epoxying someone's garage, and you put, if it ain't neon, it shouldn't be on. And they're like, what the hell? Like, sorry, I'm trying to collab and mix businesses.
Well, it's cool because, you can put their logos in it, in their garage floors, yada. But, it was super cool. And I grew up around that construction and so I was like, maybe that would be something I wanted to do. But so anyways, my brother and I started Epic Transformations. You remember? So that was that was the
one that hit.
Yeah, that was the one that hit. And my brother had this idea of we're going to help people and make money doing it, and this whole grand idea that we're help people get jobs and take them surfing and snowboarding and all this stuff. And I'm over here managing a sober living, making $1,200 a month, happy as a clam though. It was super fun. And I was like, yeah, it does. I'm like, that's great, whatever. But that sounds too good to be true. Well, he lived up in Lake Arrowhead at that time, and a check got sent to my address. And I was like, Dustin, we got a $30,000 check right here. He's like, do you believe me now? So, yeah, we're off and running with that. And I told my buddy, it's Brandon Stump. And I was like, Brandon, look, man, I'm going to go start this business with my brother. And he's moving out here with me, and we're going to start this whole journey. So, and I'm getting my apartment, and we started doing that. And that went on for a certain amount of years. And then, we got to that point to when we started Fresh Start California Detox.
So the one thing that I wanted to highlight is you found a business that your heart was really into.
Yes.
And it was based upon helping people.
Yeah.
Helping people heal. And I
didn't even know that what they were healing. I wasn't even conscious of that. My thing, I had no idea that they were healing. My thing is that I loved sports and life and showing people these things. Like, I was taking people skydiving back then and surfing and just doing fun things as a house manager, and just loved doing it naturally. And then my brother's like, hey, we can get paid for all this stuff that you just love to do. And so that was, that was kind of my excitement.
So you create kind of this lifestyle living that a ton of people buy into, and this beautiful thing. And then, so you parlay that into Fresh Start. Yeah,
so we ended up saving, it was like $250,000 is what we had, aside from our safety net, but we had some money. And that's when my brother and I, we went out to Hawaii. And that's when you set us up with that lady, Larita, and she was going back and forth with Dustin. But we're out in Hawaii, out in Maui. I remember we were in the hotel room, and he looked at me, and we're sitting there, we're looking in the ocean, about to go and ride some Vespas, go snorkeling. And he's like, P, he's like, you wanna take a risk and go? You wanna buy into a detox? It's like, Dustin, we don't know what we're doing here. Don't worry, we'll figure it out along the way. We got some guidance. And then apparently you must have been getting guidance from you or something. I was like, okay, I believe in you, and I'll follow you, man, anywhere. So, yeah, and then we invested it. But before I did, I knew enough to go around. I was like, okay, I need to learn this. I don't know much about business, and so I had to go around and ask friends that were already successful at what we were about to do. So I started going around and asking people, one of them being Brandon, and he told me to do it, and I said, "You have changed my life, sir, and you believe in me, and you tell me to do it." Told my brother, Dustin, Brandon said yes to do this. They kind of knew of each other, and I asked a couple other people, and they kind of validated it for me, and I was like, I'm in. And you should be too, because they're telling us to do it. Yeah.
So how was that experience of kind of, using the skydive analogy of kind of jumping without the parachute? Yeah,
it was, we took so much risk in other ways in our old way of life, and so this was another risk, which we were kind of comfortable doing. And with, him and I, like, that combination together was like, you couldn't stop us. And we'd figure out no matter what. We had a great synergy, and momentum from the previous company that people liked what we did. So yeah, it was, so we started it, and as my brother and I bought into it, so right away we learned a big lesson. The partner that we ended up buying, we're doing business with, within the first month, stole about $60,000 or $70,000 right away. And we're seeing all these charges from the casino and Gucci and this and that, and we're like, what's going on here? Well, she would have tanked the business. And so my brother asked my stepdad, he'd be like, hey, look, man, like, we're set up for this, but this lady we're doing business with stole $60,000 or $70,000 from us. Can you, give us a loan? And then, obviously we paid him back, and then we ended up buying her out. Like, girl, you got to get out of here. So,
and that's a lot of people jump in, because it's like marriage. Nobody jumps in going, we're totally going to get divorced. They jump in with all the wonderful expectations. So how are you able to manage of going in with this thought process of, we're going to help a lot of people, we're going to make money getting to help, and then starting to see kind of the ugly side of what partnerships can happen?
Yeah, and that was the interesting part, is because I had someone like, when you have a good partnership, what I've realized, like, and someone you really trust, I feel like it's nice to have that, because when you're all by yourself, it's real scary. You can get advice and all that, but if they're in the boat rowing with you, if I feel a little safe, I've always felt a little safer. But yeah, I mean, right away, getting hit with that, we had the resources around us. We had people we trusted that, supported my brother and I changing our lives, and we had really good intentions. And so people believed in us and would invest in us, so it was just like the energy that we created was just attracting so much good stuff. But yeah, it was a big learning lesson. Just the beginning of the journey of it. So yeah, we just jumped right in, not knowing what the heck we were doing.
So what were some of the early lessons that you had to kind of pivot and learn in order to grow?
Well, learning the business from like the ground up. So I said, well, if I'm going to learn this, I want to do every single position here. Dustin my brother was already, worked in treatment and already was a case manager, a tech, and did all these other odds and ends. So he was very familiar with a lot of that stuff already, which I had no clue. So my brother was like, look, dude, he's like, I need you to go in and learn everything and do every position. So I did everything. The tech, I learned, the Kipu, the systems of it. I did every position overnight. I did everything just to learn, and that way I would just know the business, very well-rounded. So I was in the weeds for a little bit.
So is that some advice you'd give someone that is either at the ground floor or thinking about starting, is going and getting the job and the type of business that they want to do and looking at the lowest level and then just continuing to do all the work? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one route. I mean, because there's so many things that you may see. I mean, yeah. Again, that's what McDonald's guys do. Before you go and own a franchise, you go to this burger university, and you have to do every single position in McDonald's before you go and can even inherit a franchise or own a franchise. So, they're doing pretty well.
So, yeah. They're the biggest real estate owner.
I wouldn't say like you have to do that. I mean, if you have the skill set of hiring on people that if you know what people to in the skill set to like know what people need to go where, then yes. But if you don't know the business at all, I mean, I would suggest working in it first for sure, stepping into it and feeling it and going through the motions.
Yeah, that's something that I've found too is in the early stages, I did the same thing of trial and error, of just kind of starting in a few different industries and then kind of working from there and just asking a ton of questions.
Yeah.
And then most of the guys that we've had in here that run businesses have said the same thing. But as the person evolves, I also know a lot of different people, and one of my business coaches right now, who has been doing this for so long and runs so many businesses, that they no longer have to do that because they understand the principles and the processes behind it, and then bring in those experts to do that. So there's kind of two fields, but I don't know how to get to this field without first starting over here.
That was and that was the beginning of that whole journey of it, because there were so many different things, that we had to learn to, keep a business, sustainable, and it's so complex, and this field, this is a different line of work, and treatment is I've done business with a lot of guys that were experts, like high level in different lines of work, and wanted to come and take this path, and it's an eye opener. It's different. It's totally different. You're working with humans, and you're also working with humans helping humans. So that's a really complex situation.
So at this phase in your journey, what gets you out of bed on Monday mornings?
Well, my days don't, like, Monday doesn't have a feel. So like I don't have a feel, so my weekends feel just as much as my weeks. So I'm very fortunate in that sense, to where I really love what I do. So my Monday doesn't really have too much of a feel. But what I've liked to do a lot is, like, I love to help people's visions come to life, and that could be someone starting from ground level. Just getting them to these little baby steps, these little goals, say like newly sober, or it doesn't have to be in recovery in general. It's just, I took a path where I've been exposed to so many different things, so diverse, so I can kind of shift into a lot of different areas, as I'm very, very conscious along this journey to write and try to retain as much of this process as possible, just to become better and better. But what gets me up, I would say, is I love creating. I've been told that I'm like a struggling artist because I've tried to create things, and things out of my control I say business failed because of relationships of people who I joined with, and so that was tough. But yeah, well, I mean, I say, so what gets me up is, a big thing is working with you and alongside you. It's like working with my brother again, is because he had visions, and I was able to go out and to help turn his visions into reality while he was focusing on other aspects of the business. And so I liked helping people who have a vision, who I care about, and I'm rowing in the boat with them, to help turn their visions into reality based on my skill set. Yeah, so I mean, like, for you have all these awesome visions, and I want to be able to bring them to life because I believe in them and I believe in you. So what gets me up in the morning, a big part, is you have a grand vision of helping a lot of people, and I see the work that you put in behind the scenes that people don't get to see, and I support that and respect it. So, I mean, a big part is helping the clients here, but ultimately helping your visions come to life as much as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Why do you think you're so pulled to vision creation?
I think we're all kind of artists in our own way, and I love watching things come from a piece of paper to reality, and I love watching other people observe them, working on ideas, and having someone that can has executed visions and watched them come to life. I think that is, something that I've done time and time again. And I love watching these. I like Rick Rubin, and I love being a part of watching visions come to life and watching what they do. Some may work, but it's the process of it. Because when you're not working, you're not physically working, but you're thinking about it, and your day is consumed. Like if I'm out in the water, or I am just basically going through life, like I'm still working. I'm still thinking, So yeah, I love the process of it. I like art, and I think, I love watching these ideas or listening to these things, these whispers come through, and turning them into reality. It's just a thing that I love to do. But then it's creating the systems, which I love that you love. You're all about systems, and so many people are that I'm around. That the significance of them is creating a system to try to sustain that. So yeah, that's the other part that I love.
Yeah, and it gets tough because you talk about never being off, and I'm still trying to figure this part out. I don't know if you ever do, but like even when I'm with my family, I love being there and try to be 100% present. But it's like the software is always running in the back of solving the problems or creating different things, and part of it's exciting, especially in the first stages. First, I don't know, decade or two.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like, oh, I love this, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I got to be present here. So it's interesting seeing that dichotomy of always being on, but understanding how to focus it to be present.
Yeah, so when you do that, because I know that you have a lot of different ideas and your things that are going on, you have to consciously tell yourself, hey, look, what do you do? Do you sit there and, hold on, honey, let me just note this and I'll step into that later? What is your process?
So probably, I'm still in the middle of trying to figure it out, but probably 2 or 3 years ago, I had this thought process of kind of like, okay, there's the tap, there's the divine download. I better write it down because it would never come back. And so I was frantically always going, which fortunately now Google Docs, I can just pull it on my phone. But I had to put myself in my wife and kids' shoes of kind of like, oh, there's another idea. Okay, he's going to go ahead and put that down for 20, 30 seconds, and then he's back. And it kept going. It's because there's no off switch.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, I have a very direct wife who's fantastic at just kind of being like, hey, you keep saying this, and you're not doing it. Are you full of it or what? And I'm kind of like, dang it.
That's nice to have, though. The directness?
In hindsight, yes, but at the time, like,
in the moment,
dang it, don't you understand? This is the idea. And I'm like, oh, I just did it again. I'm so sorry.
Wait,
I don't know why I get so
she,
triggered.
She keeps you accountable on the vision?
She checks me all the time.
Like, you've been saying you're going to do this, but are you doing it?
Yeah, so she will take my word and, would have just hold up a mirror, kind of like, hey, you said this. Like, really? Because you're not doing it right now. I'm like, damn. But it takes me a while. In the moment, I'm not kind of like, thank you so much for holding me accountable. It's gut reaction. Screw you. What do you mean? Don't you know this? And then I don't know. A few minutes later, I'm like, I did that again. So I'm getting better. But what made the change? Probably a year or two ago was, for some reason, I had this mindset of like, oh, I have to write this down to execute. Once I start going back and looking at my notes, I'm like, 95% of it's crap.
Totally.
Like it just sucks. So I thought, what if I just don't write it down? And then when I am in work mode, that hopefully it'll come back to me. And so that was kind of a leap of faith. And then I started losing a lot of the ideas. So still to this day, if I think it's really, really good, I'll just be like, babe, this one's a banger. I got to write this down real quick. But one of the things that I changed that really started to help is I actually have creation time into my schedule now. So I will sit down, I call it whiteboard time, where I will sit down in front of a whiteboard. I've got my little app for my transcendental meditation, and I'll just go into it, and it depends what I'm focusing on. So sometimes it's a question, sometimes it's, here's the biggest problems that are going on right now, and I just sit and just meditate on it.
Is that in your schedule, like your calendar?
Yeah. Yeah. If it's not in my schedule, it doesn't get done, unfortunately. So I book out my time very strategically with intention of what that looks like. And so
makes it so much easier or sustainable.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about easier, because there's times where I'm like, oh, I don't have time to do this right now, because sometimes it creates beauty, and other times I'm like, I feel like I just wasted, half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that as I trusted the process long enough to run a sprint, is what I call it. I typically do like 90-day sprints of just certain things to try it out. I call it the laboratory of life.
Okay.
It allowed that freedom of creation to come down, so I could at least get it all jotted, and then I would schedule time to actually flesh out the idea. So that helped a lot more, but still not perfect. Like just the other night, I've fallen back into the undisciplined behaviors of in the evening time pulling out my phone again, because I've gotten back into just the direct cold outreach. It's getting so fun again of just reaching out to people like, hey, and as I'm going back to the front lines doing that, someone will respond. It's 5, 6. I'm like, oh yeah, and I look over, and then there's 3 sets of beautiful eyes looking back at me. I'm kind of like, I don't need to do this right now.
Well, I put you in a group text with one of them, which was Shane.
Oh yeah,
Shane,
that was great. See,
Yeah.
and that's the other part is for some reason we've trained ourselves as soon as we hear a ping that we feel obligated to respond.
Yeah.
And so I think on that one, because I was in the middle of certain things and then finished up dinner and then went ahead and looked at it and just did a little response and then done. But I think it was like a 3 or 4 hour lag time.
Yeah, but that's the thing of like I want to say it at a certain level, but people are so understanding of that.
Yeah,
Shane's running a company with Chad and got a lot of stuff going on, and yeah, I think people totally understand that.
Yeah, they do. But even if they don't, like this, so this was a huge aha moment for me. This was probably 10 years ago, which really started opening my eyes up to phrasing and language. So I remember I started learning about some of these boundaries with time, and I remember telling a client they needed something immediately, like it's an emergency. Yeah. And we always have people around, but they happen to come to me. They're in my office, and I'm on my way out, and I said, I'm so sorry, I have to go pick up my kid. And this was the first aha moment. They're like, I don't give a shit about your kid. I'm having an emergency. And I'm kind of like, oh, that's right. Nobody gives a crap about my family other than me. And so it was this aha moment of giving so much to clients and so little to the family. And so that was actually a beautiful gift. And so what I've learned over time, especially with people in the program, is I use the term commitment now. I have to get to a commitment that I cannot negotiate with. It's a hard commitment. And most of the time people are like, oh yeah, okay, totally go. I'm like, wow, that is so intriguing to me. When I use family, I get a F your family. When I get commitment, they're like, oh, okay, totally cool.
Oh, I gotcha.
And so just learning these little lessons over time of something as simple as phrasing. But it was probably one of the bigger gifts I had in that moment where I was like, yeah, why am I giving more to clients or even strangers that I don't even know that are reaching out for help than I am my own family?
I get that.
And so that helped me recenter of not necessarily giving less, but you talked about systems and processes earlier of going, I got to make sure that these systems and processes are so perfected and in place that I'm not the bottleneck anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's why we train everyone from our entry-level techs all the way up to our clinical supervisor of who does what and basically what scale. We don't have a rating system, but kind of on a slating scale of like how serious it is, who it goes to in order to help deal with. Yeah. So I can say family, I'm a family first person. Yeah. And I will always give a part of my heart to people that are hurting, just because, I read about it in my book, but I was the 8-year-old boy that found his aunt who had overdosed. Yeah. So there's always a part that goes, I don't want any other family to have to go through that, whether they're the person who's struggling with the addiction or they're the family who's trying to figure out how to help their loved one heal from the addiction or the mental health disorder.
And it's so interesting with you because that is such a huge part of your story as I hear, like, or as I listen to you, is that pinnacle moment when you were that young, and it carries so much weight. Yeah, and that is really interesting because this is your passion. Even like when I come in right now, you're just like to be great at anything. As well as listening to this really cool podcast yesterday, is that you have someone that's really good at something is you have to have this like obsession. To be, anyone that's really great, like you have to be obsessed with this thing, And I come in, and what is Mark doing? Mark's, sitting there creating a video that's going to help somebody, and that is almost your obsession. And that's why I tell you is that you're getting so good at it as I watched the progression, because, you know, for people that don't know, I mean, I look at, and I create a lot of the newer edits and reels and stuff, but I go back in time to watching your very first one. The evolution.
Yeah.
And the way you speak and it is just, you know, I mean, you have put so much time into it, you know, and I genuinely feel like your time is now to be seen more. And that's the big part of, like, you say, well, what gets you up on a Monday? Well, I have someone that has so much, has put in so many reps and so much time into being able to help people. It's such a huge part of his life, and that's my big mission right now, is to help, you know, support that, you know, because that's my big mission too, you know. It makes me feel good, and to be able to work alongside someone that has that passion just as much as I do. You know, we both created books, we both have owned and operated treatment centers. Yours obviously is still carried on, and that's the part that is super cool. And I had this moment, you know, when I got my, you know, I went off, if I can go into some of the business side of it. You know, I have been surrounded by high achievers for some reason. You know, I don't really know what I look like from the other side of the street or what I may be doing. Maybe I just am very teachable, take direction. But I'm sorry, where was I just going with? I was really going on.
You're talking about business, high achievers?
Yeah. Dang it. I lost track of what I was going to say.
And people around you, mentors, how they view you?
Dang it. Well, yeah, okay. So I had this, his name is Kirk Perrone. Kirk Perrone, this is a big part of my story, is he was founder of Jamba Juice. Sold Jamba Juice, his equity in it, at 29 years old for, I could be off, but, you know, $180-200 million, something like that. 29,
wild,
right? And you know, and my brother and I, so we had this, our detox going, and this is probably 6 years we were into it at that time. And Kirk was one of my dad's mentors, and they were really good friends. They're both partying and, you know, flying around private jets, you know, just like living the rock star lifestyle is what they were doing. But and so he was one of my dad's, like, mentors, or someone my dad looked up to, because obviously Kirk was successful. And you know, so there was, I told you a little bit of this story, and my brother and I wanted to expand our Fresh Start, our detox at the time. And so I was like, well, Dustin, I'm in communication with Kirk, you know, and he loved my dad. And so we went down to Palm Springs, my brother and I had the conversation. I'm like, hey, Kirk, like, would you be interested in helping us expand this, invest into us in some way? So my brother had one meeting with us, but he's like, Preston, he's really bonded with you. So, and you know what you're doing. And so we put our figures together and showed him what it was doing, you know, producing wise, you know, financially, and, you know, and everything that was going on. So anyways, I was going to go down, and this was like one of the final meetings, right? And so he's like, Preston, come down to my house in Palm Springs, which my dad designed for him. Beautiful freaking home. You know, we were around a lot of gay guys that were very successful in, like, architecture and design. And something about gay dudes, man, with their freaking style and housing, like, badass. And so anyways, so Kirk had his house was freaking beautiful. So anyways, so we go over there, or I go over there to Kirk's house, and or I'm on my way down to go have another meeting after like 4 or 5 meetings. Anyways, he's like, Preston, come meet me down in Palm Springs at my house, and we'll talk about this and finalize this. Okay, Kirk. So, you know, I pack up my backpack, and I was on my driving down to Palm Springs to go and meet him.
Kind of my PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, we flip-flops, board shorts, you know what I mean? And so I go down, I'm driving, and he calls me. He's like, Preston, you know what? We're not going to do it in Palm Springs. We're going to have this meeting down in Cabo. I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. He's like, well, I got the private jet, and he's like, my husband and I will meet you at the jet. Just pull up right next to the jet, and you hop on, and we're going to go talk in Cabo. I said, okay. So
Had you been on a private jet before that?
I've been on to a couple other like jets.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I come pulling up, super cool. And I pull up to the jet. They had a little carpet, a little red carpet. Hey, Mr. Durnford? Gave him my hemp little backpack, and I go on to the jet, and we take off. We fly down to Cabo. Well, Kirk at that time, and I could speak about this, it's, he passed away, unfortunately. I can get into that. But he was such a big part of my life. He was a high-level guy that believed in me. And so we fly out there, stay at a place called the Pettigrew, which is a really beautiful resort. And we go down there. Kirk was extremely manic at the time and wasn't in the best spot. And so we go there, and I call Dustin, my brother, and I was like, Dustin, we can't do business with Kirk, dude. Like, he's not in a good space, and like the world, he was totally willing to invest in us big time. But I was like, Dustin, you have to trust me on this, man. I was like, we can't, I love Kirk, but he's just not in that space, and it would be really dangerous for us to be around that. So I ended up, telling him no. I said no to it.
Impressive having that foresight.
Yeah, I was like, I know, Dustin, you just have to believe me. My gut's saying this. And so I was like, we'll maybe get mentored by him and use him for whatever. But I ended up working one-on-one with him, like a sober companion for him.
Okay.
And that was pretty. It was pretty hard with him because he needed a lot more help than what I was capable at that time. And so, so we didn't end up doing it, but on that trip with him and being able to spend time with him when he was in a good headspace, he brought me around a lot of high achievers, and I just ended being in their presence, and they all believed in me, and that was a big part, a pinnacle moment in my life to where I'm like, oh wow, I'm actually becoming into something. Like I'm evolving into someone that people want to be around, and in business, and people, I must be operating some way to where they want to hire me on just to be in my company. And at that time, I'm like, man, like I should not be like I know the basics at this time, but it was just him being able to hang out with me and have a person to call.
So what started shifting in your mindset? Like what was your internal dialogue that was starting to play?
Well, it was fun. The part that was like all right, like it after all of that, I come back home because the people that we met down there, I saw what was capable. So in this story was absolutely freaking amazing. So we stayed at the Pettigrew, right? Kirk had a very big presence. And so we go out to dinner, and right on the cliffside, and right next to us was a table, a family. There's an older gentleman, he's probably in his mid-90s, very old, had a veteran hat on, and so Kirk goes over, introduces himself, and it was the Walton family. And this was Sam Walton's brother, and Paul Walton, you name it, the whole family. And I got to hang out with the Walton family while I was there. I got to hang out, and being around them and just talking with them, and even actually ended up speaking to Paul and communicating with him afterwards. It was really cool because they were just no different than me. They just were exposed to obviously that life, and just being around it was really cool. But then on that trip, I ended up catching a wahoo, a really nice fish. And so we go out to lunch, and these two gentlemen were sitting at a table next to us, and they introduced themselves. Well, one of the guys was one of the biggest cattle ranchers in Mexico, and the other guy was some big time, I don't know if he was part owner or something very high level for Sprint, as they were going to merge or do something out in Mexico. And so I just was in conversation, and I could start to have these types of conversations, not at their level, but I started to be able to sit in and maybe have some input and just have this conversation. So I go back from this whole trip of meeting these people, flying in a jet, talking with all of them, and I go back to my tiny little apartment down in Newport, and came back, and I'm like, wow, like what was that? Mm-hmm. And it just really started this whole journey of wanting to be close to that. You know, I just wanted to be surrounded by people that were at a certain level because it would rub off on me, and I was conscious that it did. And
what do you think is the differentiating aspect between what you've been referring to as high achievers and kind of what the rest of life deals with?
Like, what do you mean between high achievers and people that are?
Well, what is the differentiation factor? Meaning, like, what do you think makes them high achievers or be able to live at a different level?
I was actually just talking with Fausto about this yesterday, is that I think with high achievers is, and Dan Martell is really good. He just had another reel that he spoke about this, but it was being able to self-regulate and being able to take on a lot of stress and looking at it as problem solving, and which was really interesting because I've been at the top of one of my last businesses that was it wasn't really big, but I had like 40 something employees, and at the top I was under a lot of stress because I was publishing a book at the time, doing huge fundraisers, designing custom homes with interior designer, buying real estate, and managing my stress. The stress was it was intense. And so I needed to learn how to self-regulate and set and get organized and not wing stuff. So being around with my old business partner, he was, a franchise owner, and Ray Kroc actually sold his dad his first McDonald's, and I got to hang out with a lot of franchise owners and people that he was affiliated with. He just brought me with. And a lot of these guys were able to, they were very consistent. And at that level, they were obsessed with it, but they thought really big. They understood money differently, The Psychology of Money, which is a really great book that I need to reread again. But they were being able to manage stress and self-regulate is what I saw. And I think that was very interesting.
Yeah, one thing that you said that just kind of elicited a thought process is think big and execute small.
Yeah.
Like very precise.
Yeah. Yeah, not too big too soon as I think what we did, but these guys, at high levels still make mistakes, and, and I can go back on the business is that, I have always started up my own businesses. I've, from scratch, which is extremely tough, as you know, and I've done business with people that are really high level in their businesses, but the sacrifices that they had to do with their families, they were so in the weeds that their self-care, they could have done so much better if they took care of their body better, if they took care of themselves more. They would be able to manage that much better. And I saw a lot of things, they were, really out of shape, and they had no connection with their family, with their kids, because to build this empire, it was a lot. And to build it, they sacrificed a lot of their family.
Well, that's the main reason why I started the Meant for More movement, is because you see so many people will focus on one foundation of finances and do really, really well, but at the expense of the other 2 or 3 or even all 4 other foundations. And so of really creating a lifestyle that, what I like saying is creating a lifestyle that you'd never want to sedate or retire from.
I love that you say that. Yeah, I love that you say that because that is... Yeah, because that's what I've seen with a lot of people that have had businesses for decades, is they love it and they don't want to retire from it. And when people retire, typically it's downhill from there. Well,
I think the statistics show within 5 to 7 years of retirement, it's like, I don't know if it's 80 or 90%, it's the bulk majority die.
Yeah.
And so, being around here in Orange County, born and raised, you see a lot of people. I've seen people sell their businesses for huge multiples.
Yeah.
And then a week later, they're the most depressed they've ever been.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like if you're chasing the dollar, but just for the money or thinking it's going to give me something, then you just keep chasing, as opposed to, how do I build a life that I am so in love with and passionate, that I'm purpose driven, that you can sell it if you want, but you don't ever want to sedate or retire from.
I like that you say sedate too, because
that's my
sedate. What do you mean? Because
that's my addiction and recovery background in mental health and addiction. If you look at it, sedation has been around since the start of mankind, of how we deal with problems when we don't know how to overcome it.
Yeah.
And so whether it's sedating with alcohol, like a lot of the guys I work with, they work long hours, they come home, put the kids to bed, tell the wife they're going to go retire to their study, and then they have 3, 4, 5 whiskeys.
Yeah.
And the next day they can barely get up. And so seeing of literally like, what is it that you're looking to do? And I hear this all the time. I just want to disconnect. I just need a reprieve just for a little bit. And it's kind of like, well, let's look at the actual core issue that's driving that. Yeah. And that's how we're able to overcome the drinking process. So sedation can look like, whether it's Netflix and binging, what is it?
Not just substances, because I put in alcohol with that, like substances, right?
Yeah, a sedation is the behavior. So the drug of choice is irrelevant.
Okay.
Like I know guys that will go ahead and have affairs and totally blow their marriage up. Yeah. That is a form of sedation.
Yeah.
Others go to strip clubs. That is a form of sedation.
Okay.
Anytime I am making choices that is leading me to behavior that is not conducive to the life that I'm designing, that's a form of sedation. And so that's what I mean, because a lot of times people are like, well, I'm not doing heroin, I'm not drinking. It's kind of like, well, let's look at what you are doing. You are binge eating. You're 300 pounds and you can't even walk up a set of stairs. No judgment, but I'm just saying, look at how exhausted you are. Your body's inflamed. You're in pain 24/7.
Yeah. And you're used to that.
Yeah. What if we start basically uncovering the core lie, expose the core issue that's leading to that? We help you learn how to heal that. So now it's kind of like they can focus on business, but now it takes less time, because the mind, what food does to the mind, especially here in America, is insane.
Yeah.
How foggy. Like once you start eating clean, it changes everything. The clarity, the sharpness, what used to take an hour, you can do in 5 to 10 minutes, just from a thought process standpoint.
Yeah.
And then we look at, okay, their marriage sucks. That's why they're at the business all the time. What if we start learning to date your wife? What if you start learning how to do individual dates with each of your kids? And how to grow? Because at the end of this, there's a beautiful book. It's called The 5 Top Regrets of the Dying by a nurse, something Betty or Beatty. But she was a hospice nurse. And after working with thousands of individuals, she said, there's 5 regrets that every single person shared with her, either had all 5 or some of each one. And not one person said, I wish I spent more time making money when I was alive.
Yeah.
Not a single person said, I wish I worked more or made more. Every single person, some of the 5, the biggest ones were that I was true to who I am, like true to myself, being authentic. And you're talking about levels of energy. Authenticity is the highest one. It's actually measurable. There's Dr. I forget his name. I'll look it up. He's wonderful. I don't want to get too sidetracked though.
Yeah.
And then the other one was spending more time with family.
Yeah.
I wish I spent more time with people that I actually loved and cared for, and I wish I would have shared with them of what it was like.
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I remember I did a podcast and I was going back through it, and I was going to put this clip out of it, and then I started, I was crying about my brother, and I was getting emotional, and I was talking about me chasing money, and I don't think that I've ever chased it. I was just trying to survive, but I've been working in behavioral health for a long time, and I went out and was going to work with a guy that had a restoration company. And so he's the one that designed all 3 homes of my last facility. And he was really cool to work with. And, but at that time, I just didn't have, it was another creative thing. It was networking. And I got to go and be into, because I liked real estate and I liked design, and I love architecture, and so I've always been really fascinated with that, and I've actually got to do it a lot, and it's just in my bones. And so, but it's another form of art, but it wasn't like survival or say chasing money. It was more so that I got to try something new. you know, and I got to be alongside a guy that at first was really kind and a good guy, you know, and it just didn't work out, right? And then I started a cleaning business, right? And so I had the resources for that. Like my big thing is I have accumulated a lot of really cool relationships, but they all came from me helping them or their loved ones, or just talking in a coffee shop. Like, I'll talk to anybody. I just love humans, and that is something that it didn't work. It was really short. The cleaning business, it was cool because I got to create the website, and I ended up getting jobs from it like right away. And as I'm doing it, you know, I wasn't very like fulfilled with it, and it was just me. And so I started, you know, I ended up getting rid of the company, and you know, like I said, I got diagnosed in July with this new diabetes thing, right? And so I was still kind of doing the business of it. I got diagnosed right before I launched it, and I was still kind of trying to keep it going, but it just didn't feel right. I was so messed up, you know, and they had me on all these freaking meds, and I was literally dying, you know, and you know, and it just wasn't fitting, you know. When I found my path, or like my spark, you know, and I really know what it is being able to help people. And it's not only in mental health and addiction, it's also helping people that have, you know, an established business, helping it in other ways, like let me bring my resources to you, or can make these connections with you that can help your business grow, and which is another thing that I really love to do. Yeah, so I think, you know, I asked there was this guy, he made one of my turquoise rings, and I met him up in Mammoth. Really cool freaking old Indian guy, mid-80s, and I asked him, I'm like, you know, can you give me some advice for someone that's, you know, at my age? And he said, you know, Preston, once you find that thing, that spark, that thing that gets you excited, he's like, follow that. You know, and mine has kind of always just been helping people, but I didn't know it would be in multiple different ways, and not only just helping people in recovery, you know. That's beautiful. Yeah. Man. So, yeah, I think it's the business side is it's been quite the journey, for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
But you know, then you have these folks that you see that are like, you know, be your own boss and doing all this stuff and really pushing that. But I'm like, man, like this, like, you don't want to mislead people, because this isn't not for everyone. You know, it's really tough. It's really like, it's a really freaking tough thing to do. You know. Yeah. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, man.